Hello and welcome to a really special edition of The Big Fight. We've just celebrated our Independence Day, but I think it'll be fair to say that the mood in the country is one of a lot of despondency, cynicism, perhaps even negativity. A lot of that is justified, but some people are wondering whether we are overdoing it a little bit. And that's what we're really here to discuss. Is the national mood in sync with the reality, or is it not? And I really remember having assembled such a fantastic panel on The Big Fight to take a look at this entire issue. I'm going to start off by welcoming right here with us Ram Madhav, joint spokesperson of the RSS. It's so wonderful to have you with us. Tehseen Poonawala is an entrepreneur. Vikram Singh Mehta, chairman of the Shell Group of Companies. Harsh Mandar, social worker, writer. The one and only Suhail Seth, who I would not dare to introduce any further for various reasons. It's great to have you with us. Murad, who's of course represented India in shooting and sports. Lots of times it's fantastic that you could join us. Mridula Mukherjee, professor of modern history from the Center of Historical Studies at JNU. Great that you could join us. Jaideep Sahni, screenwriter, will be telling us why India doesn't have the Chakte spirit, at least at this particular moment. And finally, Prashant Bhushan, advocate Supreme Court. And Prashant, why don't I kick off with you? If there is a certain mood of gloom or despondency, of cynicism right now, do you think in a sense it's well placed?
Across several parts of the country, there are the Maoists, there is industrial unrest, there is farmers' unrest, farmer suicides, there are these ethnic conflicts in Assam. There is this fear psychosis which has been created amongst the northeastern people in the southern states, etc. So therefore, what we are seeing is signs and portents of anarchy and a breakdown of the administration across the country. I don't think that we should be too concerned or worried about the growth rate falling. I think we should be much more concerned about what is the state of the vast majority of the people in this country. And as I said, that the state of the vast majority of the people is pretty bad. So there is certainly great justification for this kind of alarm, and it should not be despondency, but this alarm should make people sit up and think as to what is wrong and what needs to be done. Because obviously this kind of situation cannot be allowed to continue.
Okay. Suhail, do you agree with that?
We are far too focused on the problems rather than on the solution. So more than despondency, it's frustration that sets in, because the youth has a certain tenor and a pace of resolution of these problems, which sadly is not being matched by governance. So there's nothing wrong with India. There's nothing wrong with the people. The people have every right to aspire. The farmer has every right to till his land. The poor have the right to exist with at least basic equalities in place. The tragedy is there is a complete lacuna and a detachment between governance and the people. And it's almost as if they're working.
Are we being overly negative?
Of course, but we are a negative nation by nature. We have a problem for every solution.
Are we really?
I mean, look at the
other surveys which said Indians are actually quite happy.
I don't mean to be facetious. Look at the way we celebrate occasions which are meant to be celebrated. First, you have, call it a dry day. So there you go. Number two, you have policing of the kind that you don't require. Someone's got to understand that we're a young country. We're bound to have frustrations. Those need to be managed. Those need not only to be played out. And the media, guys like you, also play a pernicious role in all of this. When was the last time the media actually talked about the fact that in the last 5 years, 11 crore people below the poverty line?
That's what I've called you here to do.
No.
I've called you here to ask whether you're being too negative, Suhail. That's what I'm here to do.
I'm saying you all should
I'm the one who's saying you're being too negative.
Correct.
So
you should
blame the media. I'm saying that you're being too negative. You need to introspect as to why you're being negative. All right. Mr. Ram Madhav, do you think the mood is cynical and negative, and if so, do you think it's justified?
My experience says that there is no need for any despondency. The mood of the country, especially the mood of the younger generation, is one of lot of confidence. They are informed, better informed than probably we were at that age. if anything, they are certainly angry with many things that are happening in the country, which they see as not the right things that have to happen to this nation. The responsibility lies, of course, with the government to channelize this empowered enthusiasm of this empowered young nation, but also with the elite of this nation. There I definitely agree with Mr. Suhail said that media plays a very important role. Rather than enhancing this mood of despondency or negative sentiments, probably we can certainly do more about encouraging this enthusiastic young national patriotic nation to do lots of things.
As one of the young people, entrepreneur, politician, do you agree with him that the young are not as despondent as the rest of us make them out to be?
This is a young audience, and if you look back and you ask them, look at the opportunity that India today has, look at the opportunities these people had as compared to what it was before. I think somewhere down the line, and I agree with Ramji and with Sohail, that somewhere down the line, the media and this whole atmosphere is slightly negative, is slightly creating this negative atmosphere, but the opportunities that exist today, you can, and you know, Prashant said about falling growth rates, but we still have the second highest growth rate in the world compared to all other countries. Brazil fell down from 8% to 1%. There are new opportunities, there are new avenues that are opening up, and I think that's great for this country. I think we've been too pessimistic.
Okay. Vikram?
It's important to realize that the forces of globalization and liberalization have opened up huge vistas of economic opportunity for Indians, and in particular for the youth.
But does that lead to more frustration when people are not being able to take advantage of that?
That's the whole point. So there is hope that you will realize those opportunities, but there is the fear that those opportunities will be dashed because of blockers, because of poor governance, because of the underbelly of urban existence. And then there is, in addition, the humiliation that comes when you feel that your hopes have been dashed, not because of lack of capability, but because some third party has decided to thwart that opportunity. So we actually have many successes, but clearly there is indeed a lot of negatives. It has to do with governance, it has to do with the hollowing out of our institutions, and it has to do with the fact that perhaps power has moved away from the institutions that were embedded in our constitution to a handful of people.
Okay, Harsh, let me get you in. I mean, somebody will ask, you're asking this question in a week where we are seeing, as Prashant was saying, fear psychosis, people having to leave their homes, and things often keep on going wrong in India, which is not to say that a lot of things don't go right as well. Sometimes when you travel around, you see signs of a great amount of prosperity, a lot of positive stories that sometimes don't get reported, and maybe Suhail is right, the media is to blame for that.
People running the government have forgotten to inspire the nation any longer with good news. My simple free advice to you would be, let NDTV take the lead, and I'm not joking, start the happy hour, where you release stories and talk about stuff that is really worth celebrating and lauding in this country, and there are lots of these stories.
All right, Harsh?
I think for millions of Indians, being poor is like a crime, and being destitute is like, you know, crime with capital punishment. Every second child is malnourished. The kind of hunger that people are living with, fear, communal conflict, etc.
But has that started to change? Because, you know, I'll tell you why I asked this question. When you today drive in India, and I'm not just talking about in the big urban centers, even when you go into the remotest of places, you do see levels of prosperity that perhaps you didn't see 20 years ago, which is not to say that poverty has been eradicated or that there's no one hungry or no one, you know, malnourished anymore. But when you go into some of the interior parts of the country, you do see that the prosperity levels have risen, and there is change which you can almost see and measure over the last 20-25 years.
In fact, I was saying that for me the answer is a very complex one, and I see all of this, and I feel we need to acknowledge it and respond to it, because you know, for at least 200 million people sleep hungry, and that's kind of desperation. They teach their children how to sleep hungry. It's a very, I mean, children who can never go to school, children have to pick rags, children who sleep under the open sky. You can't afford medicine for your children. You don't know what the Thanedar is going to do to you. You don't know. So there is a life for millions of Indians which still is very difficult. There's a great deal that we need to celebrate as well. And there are three very quick things that I'd say. I think the intrinsic pluralism of our culture is extraordinary. There's very few countries in the world. I was just reading somewhere, Daniel de Monte, I think, said half his family went to Pakistan, was in Pakistan, half his family was here. And the family that is in Pakistan has all converted to Islam. And they felt the pressure to do it. But the family that is here celebrates, I mean, they say that they go to churches, they live their life, and nobody is stopping them. I think that's something, and I see that even more with poor people. The vibrant functioning of our democracy, with all its flaws, it's wonderful. And lastly, I would say the richness of civil dissent, the kinds of ways that we organize ourselves, we assert, we speak out, I think that these are all things to be proud about.
On that note, let me get Prashant back in, who's probably related to some of those themes. At the end of the day, whatever we may say about the levels of destitution that still there are and the number of people who go to sleep hungry every night, which God knows we should be ashamed about. Even if one person is hungry or poor, we should be feeling sad about it. But overall, do you think there has been a substantial and massive transformation?
This whole anti-corruption movement has shown a fairly large-scale involvement of young people in public affairs and public issues, something which we didn't see earlier. So I'm not saying that there is nothing to celebrate at all or there is nothing to be happy about. But if you see the macro picture of the state of affairs in the country, on a macro level, what you are seeing is greater levels of destitution amongst majority of the people in this country. For example,